Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Wyant, and I'm coming to you live out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, where 87 days ago, George Floyd was lynched in the middle of the day, in the middle of the street, in the middle of America. 36 hours ago, the mural painted in tribute to George was defaced in an act of vandalism at the place where he was murdered. It still remains painfully obvious that a change does need to come, and it needs to come faster than it's happening currently. As too many can attest, America is not immune to racism, nor does America hide it any longer. We have work to do, and today's discussion is an opportunity for all of us to grow. It's an opportunity to listen, an opportunity to reflect. As real estate professionals, we are the face and the ambassadors to our community. Listening fosters understanding, and today that is our goal here. So with that, I am proud to introduce the chair of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for the Alliance, Octavius Smiley Humphreys, who will lead this panel discussion. Octavius, if you'd like to take it from here.
Sure. And just a brief pause. Ryan, it seems as if the panelists, their videos will not show as they're speaking. So if we can work on getting that squared away.
I will work on that right now.
And I do apologize for our attendees, and with the technical difficulties, we're living in a day and age right now where we're having to have these sorts of meetings and webinars and conversations via Zoom and things of that nature. So we're all trying to manage how to best execute these. But I do thank you guys, everyone out there, for your patience and joining us for this very important and timely conversation. Again, my name is Octavius Smiley Humphreys. I'm a local realtor in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill market, and also the team leader for the Smiley Group with Flex Realty. My background, I've spent 2 years working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space with the Walt Disney Company, specifically with Disney ABC Television Group, and returned to real estate back in 2018 after exiting after the market crashed in Atlanta in 2009. I am honored and very humbled to be able to moderate this dynamic panel of amazing, diverse real estate professionals across the country who have overcome many obstacles to get to the level that they are. But we also recognize that while we sit here before you today, there are many like us that do not make it to this level, and it shouldn't be that way. So what I'd like to do is introduce everyone to our esteemed panel and have them share a little bit about their background. We'll start with Tim Herr.
Hi guys, my name is Tim Herr. I am from the Metro Atlanta area. Octavius Atlanta will have you back anytime you want. I run a boutique real estate firm here in the Metro Atlanta area. Been in real estate for about 13 years now. I'm very honored to be the incoming Asian Real Estate Association National President, where I will be the first openly gay Asian American to hold one of the largest trade associations in the Asian American community. I was also your past diversity chair for the National Association of Realtors, where we did get LGBT, how legislators vote as in LGBT housing included into part of how we did give money back from our PAC. So we did a lot of stuff, great stuff, and it was a fun time. So I'm glad to be on the panel. Thank you so much for inviting me, and this is a great panel. Thank you for hosting me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim, and congratulations, by the way. Next, we have Kimberly Davis.
Hi, Kimberly Davis. I am out of Plano, Texas, which is in Collin County, which is the second wealthiest county here in the state of Texas. and I'm a proud owner and rainmaker for our organization here in Plano with Keller Williams Realty with our team. And we've been in the business for, I've actually been in the business for 20 years. And recently, since all of the changes and the interesting events that have occurred in June, I've also been a part of our Keller Williams task force, our regional equity task force that we were appointed by Gary Keller, the owner of Keller Williams, to take action. So I'm a part of that task force, and we're taking action to make some changes now. And that's been very exciting, and I'm humbled to be a part of that. And happy to be here today and seeing the exposure that we're creating for lives to be able to change lives today. So I'm excited. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
You bet.
Next, we have Vanessa Montanez, and excuse me if I mispronounced your last name.
No worries, Octavius. I love your voice, by the way. It sounds like a DJ.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm thrilled and excited to be here. I first want to thank the opportunity for Ryan for his vision and his passion for creating LGBTQ. You, Mary, and David are creating something that's going to have meaningful and impact to the community. So thank you for inviting me. My name is Vanessa Montañez. I've been in residential lending for 25 years, and I absolutely love it. I love creating the home ownership path of creating generational wealth. And so I work at US Bank. I cover 12 states. I'm the affordable lending manager. I look at CRA, supporting the diverse segments, people of color, and making sure that we are serving the underserved population and also the minority population. So lending and real estate is very near and dear to my heart. I'm also the president of NAMBA, the National Association of Minorities Mortgage Bankers of America, because we want more minorities in lending, whether you're a woman or a person of color. And I'm the president of LA, so I have a really deep passion of diversity, inclusion, and equity. So much so that I'm finishing up my doctorate degree, and it's in gender studies on the impact of gender studies. So I love what I do. So thank you for this opportunity. And I'm humbled to be here with all these wonderful esteemed colleagues of mine.
Thank you, Vanessa. I have no idea how you do all of it, but you do it, and you do it well and look beautiful doing it, by the way. So thank you so much. Next, we have Feroza Saeed.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Octavius, Ryan, and grateful to the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance for allowing me to speak today. My name is Feroza Syed. Like Tim, I am based in the Atlanta area. I'm an associate broker with Atlanta Fine Home Sotheby's International Realty. I am a trans activist and advocate in the Atlanta area. I sit on Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom's historic first LGBTQ advisory board. I was Atlanta's 50th anniversary Grand Marshal for Pride, Aid Atlanta Ambassador for 2018, and sit on multiple different boards for organizations. And like Vanessa said, love being an activist and advocate, and representing my community. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Feroza, and again, apologize for the mispronunciation of your last name. And I think it's amazing what you do and the visibility that you have being from Atlanta, recognizing that city and how it embraces our community is beautiful. And I wish more cities would follow in Atlanta's footsteps. So thank you. And next we have Jorge Soto.
Hi, thanks so much, Octavius. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Jorge Andres Soto, and I am Associate Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at the National Fair Housing Alliance. And just a little bit about myself and the National Fair Housing Alliance. So the National Fair Housing Alliance, we go by NAFA as short. You can think of us as the trade association for all of the local nonprofit full-service fair housing organizations across the country working in communities to investigate complaints of housing discrimination, partner with local housing providers and real estate agents and the overall local housing industry to ensure compliance with the Fair Housing Act and other civil rights laws are continues, and also all of our members are the kind of feet on the ground that really informs a lot of the work that we do at the national level when it comes to our federal policy advocacy. I am directly responsible for working with members of Congress, the administration, and federal agencies to try and ensure access to housing opportunity, whether it's in lending, real estate, apartments, and insurance as well. So I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation and bring a different perspective. I am not a housing industry professional, but I am an advocate. And so I'm happy to be on this panel talking to folks who are working on the ground in your own capacity.
Well, thank you, Jorge, and really thank you to the National Fair Housing Authority for everything that they do in helping move the needle and ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity, whether that's owning a home, renting, and everything in between. So thank you for you and everything that the organization you work for does for us. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Zaylor Stout.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zaylor Stout. I use he, him pronouns. Thank you so much for having me and putting together this amazing group today. I'm the founder of Zaylor Stout & Associates, which is a law firm with offices in both Minneapolis, Minnesota, as well as Pasadena, California. Our focus is on employment law matters, as well as real estate matters. So we're actually serving as general counsel for the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. So we're great and happy to be partnering with them in regards to that. I serve on Quorum, which is our LGBT Chamber of Commerce board as well. And I'm also an author. I wrote my first book last year, an LGBTQIA+ book titled Our Gay History in 50 States, which highlights significant people, places, and queer facts on a state-by-state basis.
Well, thank you for being with us. Do you prefer Zaylor or Zay?
Oh, Zaylor or Z. My friends call me Z, so we're all friends here.
Okay. Well, thank you, Z. And I'll have to get a copy of that book and check it out because it sounds like amazing stuff. So thank you so much. So with that, we're just going to jump right into it. And I want to share a little story about when I first got into real estate and worked for a fairly prominent builder in the Atlanta area that had several developments across Atlanta. A mid to high range builder, custom homes. And it was my dream to work for this builder as I got into real estate. And after a couple months, I noticed that all of the persons of color that were representing the different neighborhoods from a sales capacity worked in the southern half of Atlanta. Many of you, the panelists that are from Atlanta, the Camp Creek area, Southeast Atlanta, and all of the non-persons of color worked in either in the city or in the northern neighborhoods that were higher priced and seemed to get higher marketing dollars for their neighborhoods. And I thought that was odd. And it was kind of my first look at kind of the discrimination and the prejudice that we see in our industry. And I wanted to ask each of you, have you experienced any discrimination based on your race or ethnicity, in your respective fields? Let's start with Feroza.
Hi, thanks for the question, Octavius. Because we have so many people, or POC people on the panel, I think that I'm going to kind of speak more from a trans experience because I think that's something that we don't often get to hear that perspective when it comes to some of these issues. So I have personally been fired in Georgia for being a trans woman. I worked at a local rental company that helped people find apartments. At the time, I was just out of college, had newly transitioned, but still have what's called passing privilege. I'm about 5'4", and if I did not come out, people would not know. My ex-in-laws didn't know for 12 years while I was with my ex-husband that I was a trans woman, so definitely have passing privilege. But pretty much the experience went where I got hired and was training for the position. And the girl was of Indian descent, who was my manager, and kept trying to hook me up with her brother. She thought I was really pretty, and I was not interested. I had a boyfriend at the time. And one of the girls that I worked with knew about my past and outed me to her. And about a week later, I was let go. And I was so excited to have this new job, and I didn't understand what was going on. I had just gone through training. And Georgia, as many of you guys may know, is a right to work state. So you can be fired for any reason, much less being trans. And up until about June of this year, we did not have any federal protections in place for LGBTQ people, specifically trans people, to be fired or protected by their employer. So that is one level of bias that I've experienced. But then again, as a woman of color, as somebody who is of South Asian descent, I find that, often when I'm working within specifically more patriarchal cultures, such as South Asian cultures and things like that, that I'm not taken as seriously as some of my white female or white male counterparts. So those are both experiences that I've had.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And look at you now. So screw that property management company. Kimberly, how about you?
Well, thank you. I can tell you, I'm in an interracial relationship, and so we see quite a bit of, unique situations here. And but as far as specifically in real estate, it was just the other day I was with, we work with a lot of the NFL players here locally, and my client and we were opening up a house, and an agent was leaving, and she stopped and said, "Are you a real estate agent?" And it took me back. It's not happened in a while. And I'm thinking, here I am with the super key, which I'm still old fashioned. I have this old school key, but because I'm more of a listing agent too, so I have this old device. So I know she knows what it is, and she obviously saw me with this family, but it's not shocking to experience real estate agents discriminating. And this young lady, with me being a family entering the home, she stopped and she was leaving the house and took a look back and said, "Are you a real estate agent?" And here I am dressed with a suit on, not in flip-flops or shorts, which I'd love to be in that. And my client turned around, and he's this big burly guy that is retired, and he says, "Not only is she a real estate agent," so he just went into this lady, and it was like, I was like, let's just go inside, right? But that happens occasionally for us, and so we're taken for granted and prejudged, and having to keep your professional composure and moving forward with being articulate and non-emotional and checking your emotional intelligence, right? We're taught that as a child. So that's what one of the situations are that I've recently, that was like literally 2 days ago. So it was, I had to bite my tongue and just keep moving, and I just left it alone. So those things there we take for granted on how we have to handle ourselves constantly, right? And continue to smile and be professional to be hired and continuously work with as a real estate agent. Secondly, a couple years back, I took over an expired listing that was by referral. And it was a preacher's wife that had left his wife after being exposed with having another family in Switzerland. And so I took over the listing. He's leaving his family behind. And the real estate agent was quite angry because she was shocked that this African-American female had her job, and they all went to church with each other. So she called my seller and announced to my seller that I was a part of this, the gay lifestyle. And so there was a lot of irony there, right? With this Methodist church here in the South. So the seller contacted me and said, "Look, I have to ask you a question. I got a call from the past agent, and she's accusing you of something, and I think you should know because I can't imagine it being true." So we had a conversation, and I said, "You hired me as your realtor, and you hired me due to my statistics and stats and success rates, right?" And so she says, she went through all the questions, and I came back to say, so at the end of the day, my life is my life, and that's a true life that I live, but why did you hire me, right? So at the end, it was shocking. So I had to, continuously, she didn't fire me. She wanted to fire me. And luckily we got a contract within the next 48 hours. And I told her I praised her God and my God for that contract. And we moved forward with that and got it closed. And then afterwards, I reported her to the Texas Real Estate Commission. But those things there, they happen. And regardless, emotional intensity has to be put to the side, and you continue to focus on, you know, I'm going to be number one, or I'm going to hit our goal, I'm going to continue to grow, and focusing on where you're going. So it's so important to have a why, because racism can really interrupt your why, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, the notion that, because I think we can all agree, there's the notion that we just smile and nod and for fear, if we counteract that discrimination or racism, then we are then seen as the angry person. So I know that story all too well. And again, sorry that it happened, but as you said, look at you. And so Vanessa, let's toss it to you.
Oh, yes, this has happened to me. My first real discrimination happened. Here I am, thriving, loving lending, and I was at a previous company that is no longer in business, and I applied for my first management job because I felt I was ready. I was ready to show what I had. I was a top producer. I had my degree, and here I am. I want to go up that career ladder, right? Advance. So I applied to be a branch manager in an area called Van Nuys, California. Now, Van Nuys, California is about 65 to 70% Latino, Hispanic. So I'm Latina, I speak Spanish, I'm known in the community, I have a solid book of business, I was ready. I had my business plan, and I applied. And the person on the other side was a male, older white guy. And he looked at my resume, my business plan, and he's like, this is pretty good, but I have to let you know that you're not qualified for the job. I was like, why? And he's like, well, one, you're a woman. And I was like, did I just hear that? You know, he's like, and then secondly, Latinos respect men more than women. And the ideal role for this position here as branch manager is for a male and a white man. I was like, what? So my jaw dropped. I don't even know for how many seconds or minutes, but I was like, is this happening to me? You know, because it was one of those moments that it won't define you. So what happened? I was angry. I felt discriminated. I was in an emotional state of shock. And interestingly enough, there was another colleague of mine interviewing for the position, and she was even more well qualified. I'm like, okay, if I don't get it, she gets it, I understand. But she didn't get it. In the end, they gave that position to a male, older gentleman who only lasted in the position for a year. But that gave me that fire and that grit to move on and persevere, and not to say, no, this is it. Because that gave me the stamina to, you know, just be, you know what, you mess with the wrong girl. Now am I doing? And of course, I moved up in the, you know, that ladder. But yes, it did happen to me, and I was really offended. But you move on and you grow from it. You don't let it define you. So yeah, that was my experience.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because I think oftentimes what the discrimination and racism that we might see is a bit more passive. And it sounds like this guy just blatantly put it out there. So bit shocked, but again, you overcame it, and congratulations to you. Jorge, you're in sort of a different seat because you're not out there like we are interfacing, but that's not to say that you may not have an experience similar to ours. So do you have a story to share?
Yeah, you know, I have to say I'm in a really privileged position in that I get to be an advocate in my job, as, you know, that is my career. And I've been doing this for over 10 years now. And it's been the kind of job that I've grown in, both not just in terms of my professional capacity, but also in my understanding and expectations of people, even who I see as the same type of advocate, as people with the same type of advocate mentality. I think the reality is that across all of our little pockets within our lives that we lead, to the extent that we kind of separate them, you know, there will always be folks who, you know, while they mean well, aren't fully aware of their own biases and aren't fully understanding about what they do and how they say what they say and how that impacts individuals. And then and in that group of people, there will always be people who are, you know, willing to acknowledge, understand, and grow. And there will be people who will try and explain away and rationalize and not really focus on making the situation better. And so, you know, I will bring this up just as like as a very nondescript example, but I in my capacity at NAFA, I lead a number of different working groups, coalitions, you know, depending on the issue, depending on what's going on. And that is a privileged position in that I get to, you know, talk to folks, bring them on board to talk about key aspects of advocacy, et cetera. And I develop an agenda. People reach out to me to get on the agenda. People want to, you know, lift up the issue that they're working on. And I'm always more than happy to do that. And that's always something that I seek out, because I think it's really important to, in doing our work, to be able to believe in and demonstrate a commitment to collective liberation, because working in silos is not going to get all of us anywhere. So setting an agenda like normal, 2 weeks into the month, maybe a week later, we'll have our meeting. I get an email asking from someone who I kind of know but don't really know. They are an advocate like myself. They work mostly in affordable housing development, but the organization is trying to understand and do more around fair housing and fair lending issues. They reach out to me to get on the agenda to talk about an issue they want to talk about. We do that, and then after the first positive interaction via email, she immediately begins to rename me. I'm either Juan or Jorge, Juan, Jose, not Jorge. Then on the day of, you know, I try and just assert my name in response emails, you know, and this sounds small, but it continued. And even after correcting, you know, in a non-confrontational, hey, here's my name so you can read it in the text of this email situation, I still was Jose. And the morning of the meeting, because I leave my cell phone in my signature block, I got a text message from this person saying, you know, I'm going to be running a little bit late. Just wanted to make sure you knew, but I'll be on time for my segment of the conversation. And again, I was Jose in that text exchange. And so I got to a point where I had to say, you know, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Happy to include you. Even if you're on late, we can shuffle things up if necessary. By the way, my name is Jorge, not Jose. I got fed up. And, you know, and it was it was confrontational, but it wasn't rude. It was asserting myself. And the reaction I got was an immediate justification for why that happened and why the person is not a racist, why the person, you know, isn't like this, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it got to a point where she literally she said, I'm so sorry. I was also texting with my gardener this morning, playing into stereotypes of certain ethnic groups, right? Not understanding that in and of itself was a problem, and not, you know, committing to doing any of the work to even talking about it. And then I didn't respond because I was just done. I had done my part. You know my name now. I don't need to hear the rest. And then my non-response resulted in her sending screenshots of the conversation that she had via text with her actual gardener. So she was more interested and more concerned with saving her name than recognizing that she had made a mistake, that she had failed to correct her mistake, and that she was failing to grow from that moment. Absolutely. To close that out, it was very difficult to give space and time to someone who refused to acknowledge me as who I am, but I did it. And over time, I think that person got better. There's a lot more to the story, but I'll just put that there. And even though we work in advocacy spaces, folks in civil rights communities do have to deal with these issues from time to time.
Absolutely. And not that I don't want to hear from Z and Tim, but in the interest of time, and so we can get through a few more questions, I'm going to toss the next question to you. Please feel free to share your story as well, but I would like to know what level of impact, if any, have you seen racism and discrimination have on our industry? Z?
All right. Well, I mean, being an attorney, I get to see things from all sides. So, you know, there's the issues, the employment law issues, you know, amongst realtors. There's the litigation issue in regards to, you know, neighbors and things of that nature, because we deal with, you know, property disputes and everything from that perspective. And then there's the, you know, the lobbying aspect of, you know, trying to get some of these laws changed in regards to providing access and protections for individuals. Important thing for people to know. Yes, the United States Supreme Court indicated that discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is illegal. But guess what? They can still discriminate against you in regards to housing, right? So there's still lots of work that has to be done in regard to that. And so, great, you cannot get fired from your job in regard to that, but you know, your landlord or you know, you're applying for you know, housing somewhere, and they find out that you are a member of the LGBT community, they can end that, terminate that lease, and not really have you know, a recourse for you to be able to take. And so, you know, the struggle and the difficulty that I've seen people have is, sadly, with the litigation piece, is that you know, you got to be able to play to win, and you have to be able to fork out money sometimes, unfortunately, to be able to like have your proverbial day in court. And not everybody has the resources to be able to do that, especially when you're dealing with folks that are losing their jobs because of some type of discriminatory conduct, or losing their housing for some type of discriminatory conduct. That there's statutes that allow for plaintiffs to be able to, if they win, get their attorney's fees covered. But the problem is that they still have to cover the costs of litigation to get to that point. So there's experts, there's, you know, court costs and fees, there's, you know, the court reporter that's there for the depositions, and all of that costs money. And so when you think about folks that are already on the margins of our society, you know, this isn't a system that's really set up to assist them and to help them in regard to these situations. And so that's sadly some of where my work is and where I live. It's great when I have clients that have, you know, companies that have money that can pay me my hourly rate and stuff, but then you still also should provide time in regards to whether it be pro bono work or taking some of these you know, contingency-based type cases to be able to provide people the opportunity to rectify some of these situations.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for all that you do in your, you know, everyday business, and then what you're doing as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community. So thank you. Tim, same question.
Sure. So I do a lot of work in the diversity space, just because that's I've had a lot of experience there. So I work with the I've worked a lot with the foreign multiculturals that are recognized by the National Association of Realtors. We have to remember that the National Association of Realtors, we do have sexual orientation and gender identity as a protected class in our contract. So please report, because we do see agents. Oh, I got a call from a Realtor.com. It kind of came in through me, and we found out that the minute she said partner, then they were immediately denied. You know, all of a sudden the housing that was available was no longer available, right? And at the end of the day, whether you, and all the full multicultural groups, whether you're working with, they have a report called State of Black Housing in America, the Asian State of Asia report, State of Housing in the Hispanic community from our, so if you look at those reports, at the end of the day, all four multicultural communities, all POC communities have lower homeownership rates than average white America. So it does not matter. So the impact of the discrimination and racism that we have still exists, because if we look at the numbers, we are below average in terms of getting loans approved, in terms of getting housing, in terms of winning housing bids. So yes, you're gonna experience that. And I think that's just, it's something that we just have to work with, acknowledge, and kind of move on. It is something that we have to deal with every day. Especially in the Asian American community, we have something called the model minority myth. So we think that all Asians are doing very well, but in fact, if you look at all of Asia, there's a lot of Asian communities that don't do very well. Or when you work with the Latino communities, you have to kind of understand the culture between all the different groups. And I think that is the first step in how we kind of engage and kind of maybe mend a little bit. But it's an interesting dialogue and topic that we can go on for hours on, but the impact is still, we have lower homeownership rates. At the end of the day, we have lower homeownership rates in all the multicultural communities, and that is the impact that we have.
That's all by design.
I know. If I can also bring up, so it was eye-opening last November 2019. There was a really, and I know everyone on this panel knows about it, a really good in-depth report on Newsday. They did a 3-year-long research in Long Island, New York, which is one of the most segregated areas in the US. So they did a research and the numbers were out like horrific. So it was about 49% African Americans were discriminated against. Also 39% Latinos and 19% Asian Americans. Okay, so all of us on this panel, we had the same FICO score, income, and yet we were shown different homes in different areas. So the white folks, the white people showed more the white areas and they didn't see other diverse areas. So there was it was high numbers, and it's out there. You could see this, you could Google it. It's just incredible amount of discrimination that came out of this. And it wasn't everyone, but again, people of color have more of a chance to be discriminated on fair housing, and that is just not okay. And this was just last November. They had about 5,700 listings and they had 25 testers. So it was very neutral. And you could see this on YouTube. You could see the impact some people were recorded and videotaped. And it was just, the steering by clients still continues to create discrimination. And this violates, fair housing laws. So this is just something that comes to mind when it comes out, and it definitely does occur still.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that, because it was shocking. Like, even though we're sharing these stories, that was shocking.
Octavius, if I may, before you go on to the next question.
Sure.
As a subset of POC and Black communities, trans people are some of the most marginalized people on earth. But 1 in 5 people who identify as trans has been homeless, which is a staggering statistic. 20 to 40% of the homeless youth population happens to be LGBTQ, and then 1/4 of that population identifies as trans. So when we're talking again about marginalization or discrimination in housing, TGNC people, trans and gender nonconforming folks, are affected at a higher rate than, generally speaking, any other per capita percent of the population, any other demographic. So we just surpassed the total amount of trans women of color who were murdered all of last year in 8 months of this year during a global pandemic. So I would like to emphasize again that trans women of color, specifically Black trans women, and the trans and gender non-conforming community within the subset of LGBTQ people and POC and Black people struggle at higher rates than anybody else. And as a personal example, I'm one of 3 trans women of color I know in Atlanta who own a home, of which 2 just purchased in the last 2 years. And this is being in community for 20 years. So it is not common for us to have the same experiences with getting equal access to homes and opportunities.
Absolutely.
And Octavius, I'm sorry, I would be remiss to not, just lift up everything that Feroza just said and add to that, I have to say, what level, the question was what impact is occurring right now or has occurred. And, there's a lot happening right now. Recently the Trump administration put out the changes to the Equal Access Rule, which basically guaranteed right to access to homeless shelter for anybody, regardless of gender identity, in their own self-identified gender-specific areas for sleeping. And so the result is, horrible. You already, the LGBTQ rights activists that we work with at NAFA, working on this rollback, are already concerned and talking about the self removal of lists because of a fear of entering a more dangerous environment. And then to add to the impacts that we're seeing, I think looking at the disparities and how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting people of color is, I think, ripe for discussion of any sort regarding this topic, because all of those disproportionate impacts are they're all under all of that lies the legacy and the continued harm of residential segregation, redlining. What we saw in Long Island, which is a magnified, an opportunity for magnified focus in an otherwise of an otherwise pretty rampant condition in our housing market.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to lastly just offer NAFA as a resource for any of you and any of your clients, whether you're a real estate professional or your clients. If you do see something that is potentially discriminatory, we've had real estate professionals as plaintiffs in cases alongside us before. And we have partnerships with AREAA, NAREP, and now this group, because we want to make sure that you all know that we can be resources on the ground should you or your clients or your community ever experience that.
Thank you so much, Jorge. And with that, I want to toss it back to Feroza, because I think we all know that representation and visibility in our profession, in our daily lives, has a positive impact. But why do you feel that representation and visibility is important for people of color, especially LGBTQ+, and especially the subset of trans in our industry?
So, one of the things that happened was in my backstory is, as I mentioned to you guys, I have passing privilege and I was not particularly out. I built my career being a successful woman, getting into Sotheby's and everything else, living in anonymity. And one of the reasons was based on the experiences I had when I was younger. I was physically assaulted, spit on, choked out, thrown down stairwells. I mean, trans women of color experience these kinds of things all the time. Lots of hate, lots of negative experiences, and it led me to a space of where I didn't want to be who I was authentically and out because of concerns for my safety. With that being said, when I did come back out after about 18 years of living in anonymity, a lot of my clients were like, I'd never met a trans woman. I never knew what a trans woman looked like. I fought a lot of, I have, again, passing privilege, but there's a lot of people who, quote unquote, there's no such thing as looks trans, but may not have passing privilege, but people have this misconception of what a trans person is like. And a lot of my clients would say things like, well, this is what I thought a trans person was, or that's what I thought a trans person was. But the fact that you're a multi-million-dollar producer and that, you're walking around in a skirt suit, and I had no clue, and you kind of opened my mind just by being who you are. I think that visibility and representation matters on every single level of our lives, whether that is in our personal lives, whether that is in our careers and our family. You look at Kamala Harris. I'm a South Asian woman. She's South Asian. She's Black, and just seeing somebody take that VP nomination yesterday at that one of the highest levels you can be in this country, for me was a historic moment, right? Just seeing somebody who looks like me, who has shared identities as me in that space. I also think that seeing people who are like myself, either transgender, nonconforming, POC, as successful agents at boutique luxury firms like the one I'm in Atlanta, gives the community the ability to see themselves in spaces that they're not currently. As I mentioned before, trans women, specifically trans women of color, have a lot of difficulty in getting hired, access to the same types of employment, again, housing and everything else. So when I've done a lot of advocacy and activism work, and we're out in these spaces, a lot of the younger girls that come from my community are looking up to women such as myself as to see how they might be able to succeed. And seeing people like me or you or Kimberly or Vanessa or Zay in positions that we're in gives people that are younger than us something to be hopeful for and to look up to. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And so with the interest of time, and we may run a little over, and I know we're all super busy, so those that end up having to run, we totally understand. And hindsight, this conversation of course could have been several hours long as opposed to 1 hour. But I did want to ask kind of a two-part question to kind of wrap us up. And that is, one, is there a positive experience that you can share that showcases maybe when you didn't think someone would be an ally or supportive of you professionally? And the second part of that question is, what can we all do differently, better, to continue the progress that we continue to make, even regardless of what the current administration is kind of pulling back? So I'll kick it off to Tim first.
You know, I think perspective and outlook is always very important, right? You know, when I first got started in real estate, you know, I kept the fact that I was gay. You know, I didn't really publicize it. I mean, it's, and, you know, growing the business. But, you know, the person that really helped me, one of my mentors is Ron Phipps, who was a past NAR president. You know, he sat me down and he was like, look, be yourself, and at the end of the day, you're going to be successful. Like, if you're not authentic to yourself and authentic who you are, you know, how are you going to survive in real estate? You're just going to be, you know, hiding behind, you know, different facades. And, you know, he brought up Steve Brown, which is our first LGBT openly gay national NAR president, you know, and so we have the precedents set. And I think that it's very important to continue on forward. And, you know, we do have to continue to work to make sure that we include our trans family, our LGBT family, our POC club family, and I consider them family, because at the end of the day, we're all here trying to, you know, advance homeownership rights, make sure that there's fair, equal opportunity and lending rights, right? And you know, whether we do it in Atlanta and whether we do it on a statewide level or national level, we have to continue to move the needle forward and continue to fight the good fight. And you know, it's organizations like these and open dialogues to where we don't have to have the fear of retribution, where we can really have some positive impacts happening. And it's great to see, you know, again, us join from all over the nation, all over the country, and continue to talk about stuff that makes us very uncomfortable. You know, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but Absolutely. It's great to see this. And, you know, Octavius, thank you so much for hosting this. This is great.
Awesome. Thank you. Z, what about you?
Yeah, well, mine's not kind of random. It gets outside of the legal realm and into the book authorship realm. Again, I'm on the board for my LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Quorum. I'm really involved in regards to NGLCC, which is the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And so I participated in their mentorship program 2 years ago and was assigned Rondu Vincent with Bristol Myers Squibb. And we didn't end up spending as much time focusing on my law firm, because I was like in the middle of really trying to get this book out and out the door and everything. And there were the fights and struggles in regard to making that happen. But like right when it came down to the book being published, I actually was on a cruise that I had won through this contest, and received an email from Bristol Myers Squibb saying, hey, we want to order 300 of your books because we're having this, you know, One World Equality event that's happening at the NMSDC in Atlanta. It's during Pride. And the crazy part is that the book was set to be finished printing on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and the event was happening on that Sunday. And I was like, well, you can have the books if you could figure out how to get it from Illinois to Atlanta in a couple of days. And they did. And so the crazy part is, you know, it was just an amazing event. I had never been to the NMSDC conference. I think it was great to be able to have, you know, shared identities that I don't necessarily get to showcase all at once. You know, being an attorney, being Black, being LGBT, all at this event. And then that was the crazy part, is that was actually the first time I actually got to lay eyes on my own book for the first time and actually touch it for the first time. And they didn't have to do that, right? There was no need for them to have to do that. And it was exposure that I wouldn't necessarily would have had to have been my first book signing event was that. And so you never know who's going to be your ally and help you out in regard to things. And so it's just keeping an open mind in regard to that and being authentic and genuine in regard to who you are. People are going to want to help you. People are going to want to help you succeed. I mean, that's, you know, part of what Kamala Harris said, right? It's all about service and being of service to others. She learned that from her mother. We need to make sure that we're sharing that information with our community.
Absolutely. And we're right at 4 o'clock. So I'll just kind of open it up. Vanessa, Kimberly, and Jorge, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah,
I need to jump off because I have a call that I'm dedicating now. But I will say there is strength in numbers. Please become a member of this wonderful organization, because collectively our voice matters. And the more members, the more other people will notice. Definitely with Congress, with housing, with politics. So become a member, sign up today, and let's keep making this change. Be a change agent. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Day.
Thank you so much.
I was going to just add to that, you know, coming out of being, you know, very entrepreneurial in the business at the very beginning of my real estate career, I had a leader within Keller Williams that was a national leader that sat me down and said, it's okay to be you. And I remember just being from the rural area of McKinney, where I'm from, which is about 15 minutes from, you know, downtown Dallas, 15, 20 miles. And it meant really, it was a real big deal for her to help me see that, you know, just be you, just be you. And as I have become me and embraced myself, the growth opportunities in leadership has, you know, encouraged so many people. I remember it was only like 1 or 2 Blacks in our entire real estate office in Collin County in Keller Williams for years. And now I see more openly gay agents in our office and more diversity, Muslims that are in our office. And I know that sounds, you know, like I have to identify that, right? But it's a big deal coming from Texas and not being exposed to many different types of religions. And so it's just been great because I think leadership changes things. So when we have ownership and we hire leaders to represent ourselves as far as diversity or just the LGBT community, it makes people have more sensitivity because they've not seen us before. They've not been in relationship with us before. So that exposure of connection, it goes a long way. It makes change occur. So that's what my add is to this, is that it took me having to embrace me. So it was part of me. And as I have continued to do such, it's impacted more. So there's more together that we can do together. So I just want to add that.
Absolutely.
Octavius, can I give you 2 personal experiences on this particular question of coming out and having a good experience? Because
sure.
I think when I came out, a lot of people, I based, just like Tim was saying, you know, being out or being gay, being trans for me was super negative. I thought that I was going to lose all of my clientele. Being at a boutique firm in Atlanta, I had worked my whole career hiding who I was. But what was amazing about coming out was internally within my office, I work for Atlanta Fine Home Sotheby's, which is run by a somewhat more what people consider, you know, in the Atlanta area, a Christian conservative kind of group of people, David Bomig and Jenny Pruitt. And they are indeed the true version of what a Christian should be. Because when I came out to my company, not only did they support me, they supported me externally, fundraising, supporting me within my company, and have kind of had my back. Externally, as far as clientele, I did lose some clientele when I came out as a trans woman. What's been amazing is that internally to the community, I've started seeing so much business coming to me from trans, gender nonconforming, and LGBTQ people. So when we talk about what we can do moving forward, I think being visible, being out, and being who you are, a lot of agents are under this misconception that, you know, if I'm out, I'm going to lose business. If I'm too political, I may lose business. But what I found for my personal business is that being who you are and living in that authenticity really makes you attract people from within your own community or people who just are drawn to your light in general because you're so happy with who you are. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, and thank you for sharing that. And one final note I want to add, because we this whole conversation was kind of from our lens, and anyone who's still on with us, I think there seems to be a fear of acknowledging your bias, acknowledging your blind spots, acknowledging that there are gaps. And it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that you may have unconsciously treated someone differently, whether it was a friend, a family member, a client, or what have you, because that acknowledgement, that acceptance is the first step for all of us moving beyond that, because we all have our blind spots and our biases. And I learned from a Hispanic woman at Disney, you know, several years ago, that when you tackle those blind spots and those unconscious biases head on, you will grow, and we'll all grow together. So it's not a finger pointing, you guys are bad and we're good, and we're all in this together, and we want to go along with you and want you to come along with us. And so with that, I thank everyone for tuning in, whether it was on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you for our esteemed panelists that I literally could talk to for days. I appreciate you all taking the time out. This was an amazing conversation, and it's a conversation that I hope we all continue in our own lives after this call ended. And if you have any questions or want any information regarding the LGBT, I've been trying not to drink water, right? So, LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, you can email myself or Ryan. I believe there will be a slide once this video ends that'll have that contact information. I wish everyone a great day, and let's all go out there and be great at being our authentic selves. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.